845, Varsity man up. It's game time, everybody stand up for my
This is
town.
Justin Rodriguez with another edition of the Varsity 845 Football Podcast with my co-host, Kevin Gleason. Kevin, welcome back. How are you tonight?
Thanks, Justin. It's always good to do the weekly podcast. We got a lot to talk about this week.
Oh, we sure do, and we're going to start off with Marlboro 23, Burke 16 in what could have been potentially a game-tying touchdown. 70-yard touchdown called back against Burke, 12th man on the field.
How about that?
Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, and not having seen it, that better have been pretty flagrant foul to call that, okay? Because let's face it, almost every touchdown there's a 12th man on the field coming from the sideline, whether there's a kid stepping out onto the field, a couple kids stepping onto the field in celebration, a coach being on the field. I want to see the video of that, if there is video of that, to see exactly how flagrant it was. Because to call that in that situation, that better have been a pretty flagrant foul.
Well, I've seen the video, and it was borderline one kid on the field. So before I get into that, I will say this. Marlboro, three-time defending Class B champs.
Well, Marlboro got a break.
They did get a break. They deserve credit for winning, and also because Burke talked so much that if Burke talked that much, they should have blew Marlboro out of the building, which they didn't.
Well, I don't know. Did Burke talk that much, or was it more just Burke, showing some? I don't know if Burke did a lot of trash talking. There
was no trash talking.
More along the lines of feeling confident. And,
okay. So if you want to talk like that, win the game. Going back to the call. Going back to the call. Right. It was horrendous.
It was a terrible call.
I saw the call. The kid was barely on the field. The line judge made it from 50-something yards away. Listen.
Whoever made the call, he ought to be ashamed of himself.
Middletown, when they beat Port Jervis, the whole team was on the field. But the veteran crew, and I'm going to use his name, Tom Oldham, he's a veteran, and he's a good one. He knew better not. And I talked to another veteran ref. They said, you don't throw the flag. I talked to 5 coaches who said, no way.
It better that kid better. Those kids on the sideline or the coach, they better be almost tackling the runner going down the sideline to get that call.
Well, put it this way.
That's terrible.
You had 12 men on the field for Port Middletown. You don't call it. Okay, I'll give it to you. You don't call it. It was a good no call.
Mm-hmm.
In this situation, everyone's got to be held accountable. Going back to Anthony DeBose, the refs called him for headhunting. He missed a game. Not a bad call. They were protecting kids. My point is, he had to be held accountable. You and I have to be held accountable. The coaches and players. You know what? That line judge shouldn't do another game the whole year.
They should at least talk to him about it.
And I'm not going to mention his name.
There should be some kind of repercussions. Because, hey, you know what? The reason why you probably can't penalize the guy is because he might have followed the letter of the law. One kid had a foot on the field. It might be technically 12 men on the field.
Or maybe the Marlboro coaching staff pointed out to him, and he was worried about his ratings. Because you get rated.
Right. No,
so like I said, I talked to 5 coaches, head coaches, Section 9 varsity coaches who I respect. They all said, no way do you make that call.
The best part of that game is the fact that there's going to be a rematch. All right?
Potentially.
But, let's face it, it's hard to imagine anything other than those two teams meeting for the sectional title. So that is, to me, is what, is the greatest thing that came out of that game, is the fact that it wasn't totally decided on the field, and presumably it will be decided on the field next time they meet.
Well, they may meet again. More on that. Again, and that's the other thing. It was a great game.
Sounds
I've even heard that if that would have obviously been 23-22, Marlboro up, Burke would have maybe gone for 2. So, But again, like I said, I don't want to take anything away from Marlboro.
No.
That call was that bad. And listen,
Marlboro might have won anyway, for sure.
The referees, listen, they've got a tough job because I'm on the sidelines every week and I hear the fans yelling at them. Taking, not, and they, so they do, but a call like that, it's just, and like I said, it's not just me, it's veteran referees, it's different officials, it's different coaches. Don't make that call. And if you want to make that call, hand in your stripes. Period.
Yep. Well, I don't know if I don't know if we're a call for their head, but I mean, I think it was definitely a call that shouldn't have been made, and there has to be some kind of, I don't know if repercussions are the right word, but at least the official has to get some type of handle on not making that kind of call again.
Well, like I said, I didn't call for anyone's head, just their stripes. But we'll move on, Kevin. All right, 28, Minisink Valley 28, Warwick 0. Minisink really coming on. Warwick had been undefeated. Minisink pushed them around. They did a nice job on both sides of the line of scrimmage there in the so-called trenches. And, of course, Sessa and Moore did their thing. 28-0 Minisink over Warwick.
I went over to Minisink earlier in the day. I did a athlete profile on a kid, Nate Lake. Minisink's 6'3", 230-pound defensive end and offensive tackle. Really interesting kid. And what struck me about talking to Nate and Coach Kevin Gallagher was the fact that they had this real comfortable sense of confidence going into that game. The game was only a few hours away. And I just sensed that there was this real just this real feeling of confidence without even a shred of cockiness. They were just very sure they were going to be on top of their game that night, and they sure were. Minisink really made a statement in that game because that's a pretty good Warwick team that they really ran over. Well, and it was good also. I know we hadn't been able to really get out to see Warwick, this season much, so it was good to get out to see them as well.
Yeah, and we heard it a little bit from the Warwick community. It was a really classy move. But anyway, other games last week, you had New Paltz 28, Goshen 12. That sets up New Paltz and Port Jervis for the Class A Division II title this week. We'll get back to that. We'll move ahead and look at that. One of the games we got to point out, Middletown 35, Roosevelt 13. This was one of my worst picks of the season.
You picked Roosevelt in that?
Yes, I did.
Did you really? I missed that. Jeez.
Matter of fact, nobody's going to believe this, but on Thursday I texted into the office and said, change my pick. Nobody changed it, but I'm going to take the fall for that one. It was a terrible pick, and I'll always admit when I make a bad pick. Middletown now has clinched their first winning season since 2001. A phrase I've been using, they want to take it back to 96 this weekend against Newburgh.
I see that you've been using that,
qualify for the playoffs for the first time since 1996. We will talk about that game. But again, we had Middletown in here early after that Washingtonville loss. And, it kind of could have been the same old Middies, but they're a good team. And keep in mind, they played Monroe a few weeks ago. They lost 17-0. They were down 17-0 at halftime. They were only down 10-0 where they had a turnover inside the 30 or 20. So they played Monroe real tough.
Yeah, listen, I'd love to see this be a real close football game. I just don't think we're going to. Love Middletown, love their spunk, and love the fact that Bill Donahue's turning that thing around and really is getting that thing headed in the right direction. I just, everything I see about Newburgh and the personnel that they have and the scores that are coming in every weekend, looks like Middletown's going to have a heck of a time dealing with them.
Well, Newburgh beat Kingston 68-14 last week. Aaron Forbes with 4 rushing touchdowns and a receiving touchdown. So that's what they have to deal with. This week we will get into that though.
They put up a lot of points lately, that's for sure.
Yep, they did a job on Pine Bush the week before.
Was that 70, was it?
72. And I know the coaches at Pine Bush are not whistling Dixie from what I understand.
I'm sure they're not too pleased about it.
No. Last week, some other highlights. Sullivan West 70. Speaking of 72 points, they beat Tri-Valley 70-22 to put themselves in position to clinch the Class C regular season title. They're the only undefeated team in Section 9 besides Cornwall, who beat Poughkeepsie 54-6, and Walk Hill beat Monticello 43-20 to set up that Cornwall-Walk Hill showdown, which we will also talk about. Before we look at next week's games real quick, I want to talk to you about your experience, the touchdown of the year. Tyler Muse, before the Valley Central Washingtonville game there. You were there. Just tell me about your experience. Tyler Muse, a young man with Down syndrome. Ron Intruini took him in 2 years ago as a team member, and they had him run the touchdown. He was on ESPN, CBS.
Yeah.
He's a local celebrity.
It was really an amazing experience. I had to get over there, and as you know, we were talking about it, and I asked you if I could be the guy to cover that because I just wanted to be a part of that. And it's special when you have a kid like that who is going to remember that day for the rest of his life. But it's also special, I think, when you see a community outpouring like that, and you see 1,500, I think we estimated at, to 2,000 people showing up. And let's face it, a lot of them, they're there for senior night, but they also want to be part of that experience, to see Tyler run that in, and to see the coaches. Ron Intruini came up with that idea to do that, and just to see how the players on Valley Central just embraced this kid, and how they've embraced him now for a few years. And then the capper to me was when he runs up the middle for 15 yards and touchdown. All the kids from Valley Central go charging out to celebrate with him in the end zone. And the next thing you know is the coolest thing is a wave of Washingtonville players. Their entire sideline cleared out to meet the kid in the end zone as well. And so he was surrounded by 50 kids with two different jerseys on, and it was really, really special. I mean, it was just one of those days that are the reason why I get into this business, to write stories like that and to be able to see things like that. So it was just a great day. And Tyler was just, he was just in heaven, and seeing the look on his face and the smile on his face, and just seeing how the kids were they carried him off the field, and so it was a perfect night up until, Washingtonville spoiled things for Valley Central on the scoreboard. I watched just a little bit of it because I had to get back to write the story, and Valley Central was up 9-0 in the first quarter, and it really looked like they're going to win that game. And then Washingtonville once again showing that it just, it's really, really tough team to beat, even though its record isn't great. I mean, that team could have 3 more wins. So anyway, it was a real special night in Montgomery.
Well, Kevin, I appreciate that, and you know what? We also have to give Mr. Mike Bellarosa and Ron Intruini and his staff just a wonderful thing that Ron did by taking him in.
And Don Clark at Washington, too.
You're right. Don Clark and his charges. So we're going to come back. We're going to look at some games for this upcoming week, some big games, lots of them. We'll talk about that. So stick with us. We'll be right back. Okay, Justin Rodriguez here with Kevin Gleason, back with the Varsity 845 football podcast. If you just are joining us, we called for the firing of a referee. I'm kidding, of course. Let's talk about this week's big games. Kev, you got a little bit ahead of yourself after you waxed poetic. You had your Tyler Muse, a wonderful story, but after you went on a little bit about that. So let's talk Middletown Newburgh.
So yeah, I did. I jumped the gun a little bit on that.
Yeah, you did.
Well,
I agree with you. Listen, Newburgh's the hottest team in Section 9. Okay, you'll be reading a story by yours truly this weekend, this Friday, about Anthony DeBose and Aaron Forbes, maybe the best 1-2 combo in the history of Section 9. Say the
I was going to say history of high school football.
Maybe.
What you've been talking about, I think.
Maybe. But I love Middletown's tenacity.
Yes.
I love them. They're tough.
They do a little bit too much chirping from what I'm told,
Yeah,
a little bit too much trash talking. It's like, listen, Middletown, we love you. Play your hearts out, but you could probably, do without all the yapping on the field. From everything I hear, the Monroe Woodbury people tell me that they were just nonstop yapping against them.
Well, they were talking a little bit, but everybody has different issues, if you will. I'm going to take Newburgh in that game. I like Middletown. And hey, if you're Middletown, you're in good shape. I'm picking against you, But just Forbes and DeBose. I think Middletown can hang a little defensively. I just don't know if they can match them offensively. So
that's just it. You just have to keep scoring, sure.
Roosevelt at Minnesink. Here's the deal. Minnesink wins. They clinch the division and get Warwick qualifies out of Division 2. If Minnesink loses, that will make it a little more trickier. Warwick, if they lost to VC, they could be bounced out. But I'm not going to get into all the playoff scenarios because Minnesink's going to beat Roosevelt. They're going to get in. So the semifinals in Class AA would be Minnesink, Newburgh. Minnesink the number 1 seed in 2. Newburgh, the 2 seed in Division 1, and that'd be Monroe, the Division 1 champ against Warwick. Those would be the semis. That's what's going to happen. Minisink over Roosevelt.
Here's my thought on Minisink. Do not, under any circumstances, Minisink, go into this game overconfident.
I agree.
You had a huge win against Warwick, okay, a big win, a statement win, a season-defining win perhaps. But I'm sure Kevin Gallagher all week, the Minisink Valley football coach, all week has been telling this team, listen, do not get too full of yourselves because this Roosevelt team will come in and beat you down if you're not ready for that.
I think they're catching Roosevelt at the best time.
I do too.
But I agree.
I do too, but I'm just saying.
This could be a dog
Minisink,
fight.
do not have a letdown in this game.
Okay. Thank you, Coach. Alrighty, on to one of the best rivalries. It's a fierce rivalry. Cornwall at Wallkill. Class A game. They've met 7 times for the Class A championship in a row. Cornwall's won 6. I really think, and I had written this on my blog today, this rivalry took another level. 2010, Wallkill beats them in the regular season, beats them in the championship, then beats them to start 2011. 10-7 on the Matty Ice field goal. Matty Ice Iorlano. Then, from that, Cornwall's won 5 in a row pretty handily in the last 3 championships. I'm talking to a lot of coaches who like Cornwall pretty easily. Undefeated, powerhouse, 38 points all year. Wallkill, first of all, they like this role. They'll take the underdog any day of the week. I like Cornwall. But a blowout, I'm not seeing it.
It's impossible to pick against Cornwall right now, okay? They're putting up, points and bunches against good teams, and, they just rolled through a schedule that, was not easy by any stretch. I don't know exactly the personnel at Wallkill. I don't, but they better have everything going their way, and the belief that they can hang with this team to make it close, because Cornwall has done nothing to make you think that they're not going to win this game big. The way they've beaten up on everybody on their schedule, including out-of-town teams that were pretty good too. So, I'm picking Cornwall and hoping that Wallkill gives them a big game.
Well, they're going into Wallkill. Mm-hmm. So, that says something. Like I said, I can't. I might be off. I think it's going to be a close game.
And you've seen Wallkill more than that. Right? You've seen that.
I've seen Cornwall. I haven't seen Wallkill.
You haven't seen Wall. I know Cornwall really good about who they have. Because I did some stuff on them with our preview, and their personnel is good, and they're fast as heck again, and their defense is really playing well now.
Well, Wallkill has some personnel. Sophomore quarterback AJ Demboski.
Oh no!
Running back Zach Slater, perhaps
not
the best
taking anything away from
receiver
Wallkill.
in Section 9, Nick Gomez, some other wide receivers out there, the likes of Trent Tucker, not to be confused with the former Nick. So,
I don't think anybody
Wallkill
would
has some
confuse.
personnel. Connor Lee on defense, the refrigerator, John Demi. But again, I'm going to take Cornwall. We're going to move on to Newport, Class AA Division II champ. You want to win this game because if you lose, you play Cornwall.
This is the game.
Now, but let's just say that. You either play Cornwall or Wallkill. It's not like Wallkill isn't exactly, the Eldred modified team by any means. You're going to see Cornwall Wallkill in the championship. Let's just get that out of the way.
I would think you would.
But you don't want to lose this game because you get 60 hung on you in the semifinals. I'm going to tell you this right now. It's going to be a good game.
It should be a great game.
Newport's coming down. 209, I imagine, to Port.
Yeah.
I like Port. Tough. And Newport's is tough. I like Justin Drew. I like Wesley Schools at quarterback. And I'm going to take Port in a tough game. Because Tom Tegler.
Oh, no, he'll be ready, and they'll be ready.
He'll be ready to rock.
They'll all be ready. And you know what? Port's been in some tough games this year. I know Newport has too. Port has been in a lot of games where it's just, it's had miracle comebacks, held on against Goshen. It was in the dark.
Yeah.
They've had some really, really impressive games where, up and down, scoring a bunch, coming back from a bunch, being up by a bunch, holding on. So I just think Port has had one of those seasons where they've seen every type of test, Yeah. And they're going to find a way, and maybe it's finally their time,
Yeah. I think it's going to be a tough game. And then you have Highland Marlboro. And I have to say this about Highland. Brandon Mack, Travis Marnell and the crew, Mike Weed out there at wide receiver. I've said it. We've talked about Marlboro and Burke. Highland, don't count them out. I like Marlboro. I'd be shocked if Highland doesn't push them. And this is an important game because the loser will play Burke in the semis. If you look at a Highland-Burke semifinal, it's not going to be easy. And let's not just, talk about that rematch.
You're right.
I like Highland.
No, you're right. Highland, we've forgotten about Highland a little bit. And it's easy to, just because Marlboro-Burke has become such an interesting matchup.
Yeah.
But
I like Marlboro.
But, I do too. But, yeah, Highland, you know what? You don't, and it's not Highland, by the way. You make that same mistake.
Highland.
It's Highland. Ask the locals in Highland how it's pronounced, and they'll tell you. And yet you city boys, seem to prefer to say Highland.
Highland. I'm Pete Watkins from Highland. Pete Watkins, of course, gentleman, longtime AD coach at Highland.
You're getting there.
So I like Marlboro, and keep in mind Marlboro played a tough schedule. They have played a tough schedule, and
they have.
I think that was a big win for them. And Coach Ward said to me before that game, "We haven't played our best football." That might have been their best football, and they're peaking at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
Last game Saturday, you got Sullivan West will clinch the Class C regular season title by beating Liberty in Liberty. And Sullivan West, like I said, the only undefeated team in Section 9 this side of Cornwall. So they do Coach Ron Bauer, been in the game.
Done a great job.
Been in the game since 1966, Kev.
Jeez.
And
I mean, that's, I don't even want to say where that was in reference to. Well, I will.
No, you won't, Kev.
I will. Because you know how old I am.
No, you won't, because we'll lose some people listening to the show.
I was very
you
young.
weren't born until 81, Kev, remember?
That's right.
So listen, I like Sullivan West. I want to tip my hat to them. That's going to be a good game. So
no doubt.
We'll have all of our playoffs set, and like I said, let's go. We talked about playoffs. You have Port and New Paltz are in. That's for the title, divisional title. Cornwall Wallkill are in. In B, Dover, Burke, Marlboro, Highland are in. C, it'll be Millbrook and Liberty. And another team, if Livingston Manor this week, I think it's Pine Plains, they get in to face Chester. And Manor didn't have a team last year, so we have to tip our cap to them.
No doubt.
Well, Kev, it's been wonderful. It's been great. I enjoyed the discussion about the Marlboro-Burke game. And to everyone, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next week. This is Justin Rodriguez signing off for the Varsity 845 podcast with Kevin Gleason. Have a great week.
Later.